Hi there, Alex here at mixinglessons.com. In this video, we're going to have a look at understanding the three most common types of meter that you'll find on a compressor. And so we'll look at what each of those meters is telling you and how you can use that information to sort of tailor the compression that you're applying to a signal. Before we dive in, I've got three free guides for you to download. I've got an EQ cheat sheet, a compression cheat sheet, and a vocal recording guide. And you can get all three by heading over to mixinglessons.com/free-downloads. Okay, so we have a compression plugin here, and this compression plugin in particular gives us three kinds of meter. It gives us an input meter, an output meter, and what's known as a gain reduction meter. So let's just send some signal into this compressor and have a look at those three. Okay, so when you look at a compression plugin for the first time, it can be a little bit daunting because it seems like there's quite a lot going on here. But generally, the three meters that you'll most commonly find on a compressor will be the input, output, and gain reduction. Now, some compressors might not give you any meters at all. Some will maybe just have one. It'll maybe only have a gain reduction meter. Others might let you toggle between different meter types. So let's talk about what the input, output, and gain reduction meters do. So first of all, you've got the input meter. Now this is telling you what level the signal is coming into the plugin at. So it's telling us how loud that signal is coming into the compressor. And it also gives us a little bit of other visual information as well about that signal. It sort of shows us how high the signal gets and how low the signal drops. And then next we have the output meter. And this is giving us a sort of visual insight of the signal that's being output from the compressor. So crucially, unlike the input meter, the output meter is showing us the signal after it's been compressed. So it's showing us what that compressed signal looks like. And so that could give us some visual information about how the signal has changed in comparison to the incoming signal. Because you're using a compressor to turn parts of the signal down, there's probably going to be less of a variation between how loud the signal gets and how low it drops. Now, in practical terms, the thing that I use the input and output meters for most often is to try and level match the input and the output of the plugin. I did a video last week on why it's important to match the input and the output levels of your plugins, and so I'll leave a link to that on screen. But very briefly, I think that it's beneficial to try and make the level of the signal that comes out of the plugin as close in level as you can to the level of the signal that came into the plugin. And so most often I use the input and the output meters to compare those two levels and to try and then make them match as closely as possible. And then thirdly, we have the gain reduction meter. And I think the gain reduction meter is probably the most useful of the three. And that's because the gain reduction meter actually allows us to see what the compressor's doing to the signal. So let's have a quick look. So what this is showing us first and foremost is how much the compressor is turning the signal down. So we were getting about 3 decibels of gain reduction at most there. So we can see there that with our current settings, the signal is being turned down about 3 or 4 decibels. It also lets us see when the compression is happening, when the signal is being turned down. So I can see there that the compressor is turning the kick drum and the snare drum down in this instance. And it kind of gives me an insight into how much the kick drum is being turned down, how much the snare drum is being turned down. Now it's also giving us some visual information on how quickly or gradually the signal is being turned down or being allowed to rise back up in level. So I'll show you here that if I was to, for instance, make the release longer, then we would see the compression subside more gradually. So you can see there that that compression is hanging around longer because the release is longer. And it's also revealing that with this really, really slow release setting, the compressor isn't actually resetting between kick and snare hits. The release is so slow that it's not having time to fall back to zero. So this gain reduction meter is giving us a lot of information. It's telling us how much the signal is being turned down. It's telling us when the signal is being turned down. And it's telling us how quickly or gradually the signal is being turned down and how quickly or gradually the signal is being allowed to rise back up. And obviously all of this is dependent on how you have your ratio, your threshold, your attack and your release set. And so it's giving you a visual representation of exactly how the settings that you've applied in terms of your threshold, ratio, attack, and release are actually affecting the signal. It's showing us how the compressor is applying the compression based on those settings. And then that obviously gives you the opportunity to tweak those settings and to tailor them to make sure that the compressor is behaving the way you want. Now, obviously, it goes without saying that what really matters is the way the compression sounds. And so it's not about trying to make this meter look a certain way. It's about trying to make the signal sound a certain way. But these meters can be useful in informing us of the way the compressor is behaving. And you can sometimes use that information to inform your decisions. Maybe something doesn't sound quite right and you're not sure why, but then when you look at this meter, it kind of reveals that, oh, well, actually the release is really slow, or the attack's so slow that no compression is actually being applied to the signal, or perhaps some other parameter is set in a less than optimal way for what it is that you're trying to achieve. And so these meters can be really useful when you use them in conjunction with your ears and in conjunction with what you're hearing to sort of inform your decisions a little bit. Now, as I said earlier, not every compressor will give you the same meters. Some compressors won't give you any meters. But I'll just show you quickly another one which you might come across quite often, and that's a slightly different layout of a gain reduction meter. So here we have another gain reduction meter, and it looks quite different to the last one that we saw. So what will happen here is this needle will fall backwards this way to show us how much the signal is being turned down, when the signal is being turned down, and how quickly or gradually the signal is turned down and then rises back up. So we could see there that the compression is being applied quite quickly. The compression is then subsiding quite quickly. We could see when the compression was being applied, and we could see that the signal was being turned down about 2 or 3 decibels. And so these are some of the meters that you will most commonly find on a compressor. If you've got any questions about this, please feel free to leave a comment. Please feel free to subscribe to the channel for future videos. Don't forget to go over to mixinglessons.com/free-downloads for your free EQ cheat sheet, your free compression cheat sheet, and your free vocal recording guide. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.